Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Gopi Jana Balava Giribaradhare Gopi Jana Balava Giribaradhare Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachare Yamunatira Vanachare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jayam Vishnupad Paramaham Sefer Vrajakcharis Titus Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Ki Sri Giri Govardhan Ki Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Sankirtan Yagya Ki Gaur Premanande. All glories to their Sama devotees. All glories to their Sama devotees. All glories to their Sama devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So Hare Krishna devotees, one announcement for your information. Today we're going to read from Srimad Bhagavatam. But then after a little while, we will say some words about one devotee from the South African Yatra who passed away just very recently. What day was it? 10th of March. Oh, okay. So about a month ago, roughly, passed away and had been living and serving in America for many years, although she joined here, and actually I knew her myself personally when she was here in the 80s, early 80s. Very sincere soul who passed away, yes, about a month ago in America, and so we'll say some words about her. And then her family members, brother and sister-in-law, have kindly sponsored a special breakfast for everyone. So after the class, of course, you'll be able to partake of that and remember her. This is all in the name of Raga Lekha Devi Dasi. For the time being, though, let us read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 4, Sati quits her body, text 13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So if you've got the sheets or whatever you've got to refer to, 4th Canto, Chapter 4, verse 13. Nascharyam etad yad asatso sarvada mahad vininda kunapatma vadisho Shershyam Mahapurusha Pada Pamshubir Nirasta Tejaso Tad Eva Shobanam Nascharyam Etad Yadasatsu Sarvada Mahadvininda Kunapatma Vadisho Sershyam Mahapurusha Padapam Subir Nirastate Jasu Tadeva Shobanam Nascharyam etad yadasatsu sarvada Mahadvininda kunapatma vadisho Sershyam Mahapurusha Padapam Subir Nirastate Jasu Tadeva Shobanam Nascharyam etad yadasatsu sarvada Mahadvininda Kunapatmavadisho Sershyam Mahapurusha Pada Pam Shubir Nirastate Jasu Tadeva Shobhanam Seshyam Mahapurusha Pada Pam Shubir Nirastate Jasu Tadeva Shobhanam Charyameta Yadasatsu Sarvada Mahadvininda Kunapatmavadisho Seshyam Mahapurusha Padapam Subir Nirastate Jasu Tadeva Shobhanam. Mataji's. Ascharya Metad Yadasatsu Sarvada Mahadvininda Gunapatma Vadisho Seshyam Mahapurusha Padapam Subir Nirastate Jasu Tadeva Shobhanam Ascharya Yadasatsu Sarvada Mahadvininda Kunapatma Vadisho Seshyam Mahapurusha Padapam Subir Nirastate Jasu Tadeva Shobhanam Ascharya Metad Yadasatsu Sarvada Mahadvininda Kunapatma Vadisho Seshyam Mahapurusha Padapam Subir Nirastate Jasu Tadeva Shobhanam Na not Ascharyam wonderful Etat this Yat which Asatso evil Sarvada always Mahatvininda the deriding of great souls Kunapa Atmavadisho among those who have accepted the dead body as the self. Sa'irshyam, envy, Mahapurusha, of great personalities. Padapam Sube, by the dust of the feet. Nirastate Jaso, whose glory is diminished. Tat, that, eva, certainly, Shobhanam, very good. Translation. It is not wonderful for persons who have accepted the transient material body as the self to engage always in deriding great souls. Such envy on the part of materialistic persons is very good, because that is the way they fall down. They are diminished by the dust of the feet of great personalities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Everything depends on the strength of the recipient. For example, due to the scorching sunshine, many vegetables and flowers dry up, and many grow luxuriantly. Thus, it is the recipient that causes growth and dwindling. Similarly, Mahiya Sampada Rajobhishekam, the dust of the lotus feet of great personalities, offers all good to the recipient. But the same dust can also do harm. Those who are offenders at the lotus feet of a great personality dry up. Their godly qualities diminish. A great soul may forgive offenses, but Krishna does not excuse offenses to the dust of that great soul's feet. Just as one can tolerate the scorching sunshine on one's head, but cannot tolerate the scorching sunshine on one's feet. An offender glides down more and more. Therefore, he naturally continues to commit offenses at the feet of the great soul. Offenses are generally committed by persons who falsely identify with the impermanent body. King Daksha was deeply engrossed in a misconception because he identified the body with the soul. He offended the lotus feet of Lord Shiva because he thought that his body, being the father of the body of Sati, was superior to Lord Shiva's. Generally, less intelligent men misidentify in that way, and they act in the bodily concept of life. Thus, they are subject to commit more and more offenses at the lotus feet of great souls. One who has such a concept of life is considered to be in the class of animals, like cows and asses. Nascharyam etad yadasatsu sarvada mahadvaninda kunapatma vadisho sershyam mahapurusha padapam subhya nirastate jasu tadeva shobhanam. It is not wonderful for persons who have accepted the transient material body as the self to engage always in deriding great souls. Such envy on the part of materialistic persons is very good, because that is the way they fall down. They're diminished by the dust of the feet of great personalities. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, so in the previous verse, which we read yesterday, Sati Sati, the wife of Lord Shiva and daughter of Daksha, at whose place she is right now, she spoke in a, you could say, scornful way, a sarcastic way, in that she addressed her father, Daksha, as Dvija. Dvija means twice born. Dvija, twice born, and indicates someone who is on a higher level than just your typical person, a person who's educated, a person who is cultured, and who really has higher qualities, particularly Brahminical types of qualities. So she addressed Daksha, her father, in that way, directly, Dvija. But it was sarcasm. It was scornfulness, because it was just so extremely vividly obvious that he was nothing like that at all. And on one level, perhaps, it was a type of shock treatment. Sometimes when shocking things happen in people's lives, it wakes them up out of whatever type of normal but rather ignorant consciousness they're in. Like traditionally, there's a term, smashana vairagya. Smashana vairagya. Vairagya meaning renunciation, and smashana referring to the cremation ground. That when a member of the family passes away, just of ordinary people particularly, but of everyone also. So someone passes away, and then the body is taken to the cremation ground and cremated, and the people watch as the body that they've known for many years is just burnt up in front of their eyes. And at least traditionally the idea is that this wakes them up a bit, that I have such a body, and it's aging, and in due course I'm going to end up, or my body's going to end up exactly in this situation. And therefore they may, or often, they often get some realization, and as a result of that experience, at least for the time being, they become a little more detached from the regular material situation and consider deeper aspects of life and death and the body and the eternal soul like this. So Sati was doing like that. She's trying actually to wake Daksha up, that stop being envious of my husband, Lord Shiva. And of course, even if somehow or other Daksha does not like Lord Shiva, because he feels Shiva has done something against him, although it's not correct at all, but still he thinks like that. But what has Sati done herself? She's done nothing at all against him, against Daksha. She is his daughter. But now he's very dismissive towards her, and negligent and envious towards her. for literally no reason at all. But it's just a manifestation of his fallen condition. So in this verse she's continuing, and in fact she goes on for maybe another 10 verses or so, just pointing out, you could say criticizing, but pointing out, what is your situation? It's terrible. Please stop it, even for your own sake. So that's what she's doing here. And again, there's an element of sarcasm. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. So yes, there is some sarcasm and some like real scornfulness here, that she's saying, addressing her father right to his face, that it's not surprising. It's not like something special. It's really something to be expected, that people who identify with their material bodies and just in general with peoples and living entities, material bodies, it's not surprising that such people are regularly, or she actually says always, engaged in deriding great souls. It's nothing special. In fact, it's to be expected. And then the sarcasm, the scornfulness, such envy, that enviousness those materialistic people have towards the devotees is good. Is good? How could it be good? But she says it's good in the sense because that's how they fall down into just terrible situations in life. And it's something like yesterday we mentioned, and maybe even the day before, how when in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Jagannath Puri, how when Ramachandra Puri, who was a very senior devotee, and in that sense respectable, but he had been going around criticizing, pointing out faults in the devotees and even in Lord Chaitanya himself. And the devotees tolerated that, and even Lord Chaitanya retained, even though he was criticized in a very stupid way, but still he retained respectfulness towards that person, at least outwardly. However, when that person left Jagannath Puri to go and criticize devotees somewhere else, the devotees in Puri were very happy. Good riddance. Just hope we don't see you later. Really, just please don't come back. So, it's not nice. Just like, well, today we're observing the departure of a devotee. And we will talk a little bit about the attitudes that other devotees or that people should have in regard to the departure of devotees. So that we're observing today. And of course, we all know yesterday another devotee departed who was very well known to all of us here, a temple resident devotee for many years. And of course, there's no question of being happy that we lost the association of that person. Rather, for those who remain, generally it's very sad, and there's a real feeling of loss, and it is a loss. It's a great loss to those who are left behind. But in this case, she's saying that the enviousness of these materialistic people who are always engaged in deriding great souls, it's good, because in that way they fall down, and we don't have to put up with their association any longer. Thank you, Krishna. That sort of idea. So this is being discussed here, and it's a very interesting and important point. Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, at least most of the purport actually, Prabhupada is focusing on a specific aspect of the situation, that everything depends on the strength of the recipient. Like Srila Prabhupada said about, quoting his father actually. Srila Prabhupada's father, one of his sort of pet sayings, favorite little expressions, was that we have 2 hands, Krishna has 8 or 4 or 1,000, but he can have many hands more than us. But particularly, Prabhupada's father would refer to 8-handed Krishna. So, if 8-handed Krishna wants to take something from you, then how can you, with your 2 hands, hold on to it? But if 8-handed Krishna wants to give you, how can you, with your 2 hands, hold it all? So it depends which way you look at it. There can be just overwhelming benediction, so much blessing and mercy that it's just, you can't really digest it. But then on the other hand, it can be too bad, so bad that you just can't deal with it, and you become overwhelmed by negativity, uncontrollable negativity. It depends on the capacity of the recipient, Prabhupada's saying. And he gives the example, first of all, he gives the example of the sun. And the sun, when the weather's hot during summer, some vegetables, some plants, they can't take it. So they just dry up, they shrivel up. But other plants, they thrive. The hotter the better even. Particularly if you go here we're subtropical, we're not actually tropical. But if you go to real tropical areas like along the equator, then you'll find that, well, even here in the summer, you can't really, in Durban area, you can't grow cauliflowers. It's just too hot for them. It's a shame. But anyway, you can't do it. And relatives of cauliflowers, it has to be cooler. But in the summer, Then, of course, the lychees come. And the mangoes come. Yeah, but in some countries, the lychees and the mangoes come not in the summer because it's too hot for them. And you get, like in Singapore, what do you get? What? Oh, okay. But anyway, in Indonesia, what's the name of that vegetable that smells terrible? Oh, fruit then. Durian. Durian. The durian smells like, gosh, something's wrong. But many people love it. And, I've been there a little bit. And there are other vegetables which you just don't get even here, even though it's relatively warmer than, for example, practically all of Europe. But it's not hot enough for durians. That's good, actually. So it depends. Some can take more sun, some can take less. It's just the way they're constituted. So Prabhupada says everything depends on the strength of the recipient. And then he goes on to talk about receiving the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees. For some, for other devotees, and for pious people even. The dust of the lotus feet of the devotees is such a blessing, so much mercy. We want more and as much as possible, more than possible, just as much as we can get. But if someone is envious, as Sati says, always engaged in deriding the great souls, then such people, very materialistic and demoniac people, some of the dust comes their way and it just destroys them, like the sun will just destroy certain cold weather plants when it gets hot. So they become destroyed. And even I was reading the commentary on this verse by, I think, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he was saying that for such envious people, even one little speck of dust, like dust, if you look at dust, it's many tiny, tiny little granules. But he says, just one of these tiny little, like a grain of sand, it's really tiny. Just one of them, if it lands on the head of one of these envious people, that'll be enough just to burn them to dust, to ashes, and they'll be finished. Just finished. Just by one grain of dust from the lotus feet of a great devotee, like in this case, she's talking about Lord Shiva. Yes, and she's happy about that. She's actually happy. We might think this is a contradictory type of situation. How could a devotee who's very kind-hearted and broad-minded and a gentle person, how could a devotee be happy, feel that it's good that these people fall down and just get crushed by the material nature? Well, it's because that envy That envy is so horrible. In fact, any envy, and particularly large-scale envy like these types of people have, like Daksha has, it's such an extremely horrible and degrading thing, and it just undermines completely any little good qualities that such a person might have. Because we hear that even Adolf Hitler, he appreciated people who didn't drink. That's good. But he had a few problems in other respects, as I think we all know. So, to find someone who's just 100% bad, well, that's very hard in this material world, because everyone is in a mixed condition. But when the bad reaches a certain point, like I'm sure that devotees who were living at the end of the Second World War, and they found out Adolf Hitler's dead, I would imagine they thought, good, that's great, good riddance, wish it had happened before. Just like Srila Prabhupada had the experience with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that Srila Prabhupada was there in the ashram, in the Caitanya Mat in Mayapur, and he was just walking around, and on one side was the house that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta lived in, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta came out on the floor above ground, came out onto the balcony and saw a snake down on the ground, and he called out to some devotees, "There's a snake, kill it!" And the devotees came out and bashed the snake and killed the snake. And Srila Prabhupada felt a little taken aback, he says, just killing this animal. But then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recited one verse that a saintly person is happy when some envious creature like a snake is killed. In other words, even though the Vaishnavas are very merciful, they're very tolerant in regard to being mistreated themselves, and in general they're very merciful to all living entities. But when someone reaches a certain level of enviousness and hatefulness, then the devotees, it is, you could say, acceptable for the devotees to feel happy when such a person dies. And the thing is that these qualities, characteristics, lust, anger, greed, envy, pride, etc., etc., they naturally develop more on the basis of a person's ungodliness, on the basis of a person becoming more and more anti-God, then the person sort of proportionately becomes degraded in terms of moral principles, standards, and just like human, desirable, and particularly spiritual types of qualities. And there's a verse in Bhagavad Gita, well, two verses we can say. First verse, chapter 9, verse 11, Lord Krishna says, Avajananti mamudha manushim tanamashritam Parambhava majananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So the next verse talks about what happens to the character, the personality of such a person as step by step they adopt that attitude against Krishna more and more. Mogasha moga karmano moga jnana vichetasa rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shita. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. So Krishna's point is that as people become more and more attracted to being anti-him, more and more, then as a natural consequence, they become more and more attracted to demonic and atheistic views. And therefore you find that, well, an interesting point. People who are, like you could say, staunch meat eaters, really just into it, then you'll find generally that they're also into taking intoxication. They're also into illicit sex life, gambling, like this. They're degraded, they're atheistic and anti the Supreme Lord. And conversely, they're attracted to these other things. And usually, all of them. You don't find someone who's a staunch meat eater, but they're not into intoxication or the other things. They're not interested. It's kind of a package that as you get into the package of being anti the Supreme Lord, you just find yourself drawn into the package of these sinful activities. So anyway, this is the ongoing story of the downfall of Daksha, and his consciousness is already just gone completely, overpowered by envy, anger, and completely foolishly. And he is going to, it hasn't quite caught up with him yet, the reaction. He's going to end up with a goat's head. So, yes. So, of course, as devotees, a devotee is a person who recognizes that I must avoid these types of things. I must avoid being envious and angry, and rather I must be broad-minded and friendly as much as possible with all living entities and try and help as much as possible. And today, as we said, we're observing the passing away of Raga Lekha Devi Dasi, who I remember was there in the Keter Ridge ashram when I arrived in January 1980. Anyone remember when she went to America? I don't remember. I remember when she was there, I remember she was Bhakti in Annie. Was she? She left in 81, okay. Right, yeah, I arrived January 1980, and she was there, and she was very staunch, very dedicated devotee, very nice devotee. And the GBC at the time asked her to go to America to marry one devotee disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Amayatma Prabhu, and she went in 81 and married him. And first they stayed in Detroit, in the Detroit temple. She was a pujari there, dressing Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra regularly for more than 3 years. Then they went to Los Angeles and served in our Los Angeles temple. She was a pujari there. And her husband, Amayatma Prabhu, he's still living. He's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I know him a little bit, not well at all, but to some degree. And he has some sort of technological skills. So he was involved in what they call the first American Transcendental Exposition, FATE, or FATE, a Krishna Conscious Museum project. And I went there and saw that project sometime in the, 90s, I suppose. Very interesting theistic exposition, a diorama museum. So Ragaleka, helped there in Los Angeles and in Detroit. In Los Angeles with that special museum project, helping put things together to establish the museum project. And her husband was doing different technical things. And from time to time, after it was established, the two of them would go and do some renovations of the exhibits there in the Los Angeles Museum and the museum in Detroit. So I remember her as being a very gentle, a quiet, and very gentle devotee, very, very pleasant devotee. In my experience with her, she never, got into a tizzy or any sort of, activity which wasn't just simply nice. She was really a very nice and gentle devotee. And so after some time, she Alachua, Florida. They had 3 children. All of those 3 children are practicing devotees today. And certainly, we remember her as, you could say, a very sweet devotee, just like an ideal devotee personality. She would counsel devotees, particularly she counseled married devotees who sometimes would have some problems in their Krishna conscious marriages. She would regularly, when she was mixing with non-devotees, like shopping and whatever, she would preach to them about Krishna. And her husband said just after her passing, means just in the last few weeks, Amayatma said that he dreamt of her, and in that dream she very clearly stated that the process Srila Prabhupada gave us, the chanting, reading his books, always thinking of Krishna, putting Krishna in the center, the process works. And she said, we don't have to hold a big position. We don't have to head up this project or that project. All we need to do is humbly follow what Srila Prabhupada has taught. Particularly devotees who are more advanced, experienced, have been devotees for many years, in her case, at least 40 years or more, a little more than 40 years. Krishna consciousness is very deep, and as devotees persevere and